All right, what is up, guys? Randomodium here. We're going to be covering preseason 2020. We're going to go over all of the changes, and then I'm going to go over how I think it's going to shape the meta, at least for the first part of the season. I'm assuming that a lot of things are going to change during preseason, and that a couple of the things that I don't like about these changes will probably be reverted or will be changed into something else. So they're calling season 2020 Rise of the Elements, and that's because they're going to be putting a lot more power on the elemental drakes. It's actually going to change how the map is, and we'll talk about how we think that's going to influence the game. So the way it's going to work is that the third drake will transform the rift, and then after that, its element will be the only one to spawn for the remainder of the game. So Infernal Drake, if the third Drake is Infernal, what it's going to do is it's going to wind up destroying parts of around red buff and blue buff. So in all four quadrants of the jungle. So you can see that it destroyed part of the walls here around red buff, and it also got rid of the brush that was between red buff and Krugs. And it's similar on blue side as well, but they don't have a picture of that. If it's Ocean Drake is the third Drake, then what happens is it actually causes water to flood in more areas. It creates larger brush areas, and it also creates more brush areas. So you can see, like, around red buff, this entire segment between red buff and Krugs is completely covered in brush. Then they added like a brush to the Drake pit here, a lot more brush areas, and it makes it a lot easier to sneak around and stuff. Cloud Drake. So if Cloud Drake is the third Drake, then it creates these air currents around the buffs that basically speed up rotation, so you can move a lot faster through those areas. What it hasn't made it clear is if it only allows you to go faster in one direction, or is it omnidirectional? Like if it was like a wind current, then you would only be faster going one direction and you'd be slower going against the wind, basically. So it's not clear whether you just get a flat movement speed boost either direction you go, or if it's going to just be like a single direction. And then Mountain Drake, if the third Drake is Mountain Drake, it creates additional obstructions. So instead of like Infernal Drake, it removes obstructions, it removes walls, it makes the map more open. With Mountain Drake, it makes the map more closed off, so there's more choke points. So you see there's a choke point here between red buff and Krugs, and I believe that there's a choke point you can see that's kind of on the ramp between Raptor and the river. So that's all cool. I'll get into how I think that's going to influence the game a little bit later. Overall, I don't necessarily dislike or like this change. I think it's something that's definitely going to make things a little bit more interesting. It's going to add some more flavor to the matches. It's going to make it so that every match is different, and it definitely is going to change a lot of strategies, and it's going to really impact team compositions in ways that I don't think a lot of people are going to understand. So then, additionally, what they're going to do is they're going to make it so that you can get a so they're going to change the buffs. So first up, the Ocean and Infernal are roughly the same. So you gain a percentage of attack damage ability power for Infernal. For Ocean, you gain regenerated percent of missing health. For Cloud, you gain ultimate cooldown on your ultimate ability. And then for Mountain, you gain a percentage increase on armor and magic resistance. So Mountain's the big one that they changed. You no longer gain like increased damage to structures. I think they realized that's really powerful for taking Baron and things like that. And a lot of teams were just bursting Baron so fast that there wasn't even time to contest. So instead, they're going to make it a defensive buff to kind of counterbalance the Infernal buff, which is just a flat attack damage and ability power increase. Then, additionally, when a team kills their fourth elemental Drake, instead of stacking their elemental buff, they'll gain a powerful dragon soul from the dominant dragon. Dragon souls persist through death and last the remainder of the game. So the question that I have is that does each team need to kill 4 drakes, or is it the fourth drake that spawns? That I think they're making it sound like when a team kills their 4th elemental drake, which means that there's a decent chance that neither team will kill 4 elemental drakes, because there's only 6 that spawn, unless they're going to be changing how Elder. Oh yeah, they are going to be changing how Elder is. So once the team has claimed the Dragon's Soul, it becomes Elder's Dragon's turn to defend a pit. So they're changing it so that no longer at 35 minutes you're going to get the Elder Drake. It's not until one team gets the Dragon's Soul that you actually get the Elder Drake that comes onto the map. So anyway, Dragon Souls. So for Infernal Dragon Soul, every 3 seconds, your next attack or damaging spell creates a small AoE explosion, dealing adaptive damage that scales with bonus attack damage, ability power, and bonus health. So it works for tanks just as well as it works for carries. Ocean Dragon Soul, dealing any damage triggers a strong health and resource regeneration for 3 seconds, and then damage to minions provides less regeneration. So this makes sieging really, really powerful. Cloud Drake, hitting enemies with abilities or attacks that lowers the cooldowns of your base abilities. So basically a Spear of Shojin. If I remember correctly, they're removing Spear of Shojin later down in these results. And then in Mountain Drake, after not taking damage for 5 seconds, gain a shield that lasts until destroyed. The shield's magnitude scales with bonus attack damage, ability power, and bonus health. This is actually really good for, I would say more for carry champions than it is for straight up tanks. So for carry champions, it's basically an anti-burst tool. And then also for squishy assassin types or squishy divers for building like full AP, or full AD, it could be really strong because it allows you to potentially get a second rotation of spells off. So yeah, that's an interesting one as well. All right, Elder Drake. So Elder Drake, what it's going to do is instead of giving you a bunch of like stats, it's going to give you an execution component. So yeah, you get the burned still, but you're also going to get a new execution component. So if I here, let me go back. You can see Twitch is attacking the Lulu, and then boom, you would see the Elder Drake above Twitch's head, and it causes the execution. They're saying that it will be able to make it so that things like Zonya's Hourglass, Kindra's Ultimate, things like that can negate the execute. So there will be the way that you can have a save, since there is a wind up time. So yeah, that's gonna make Elder really powerful, potentially even more powerful than it already is. Okay, side lanes. So side lane alcoves and brush. So what's going to happen is they're adding these little alcoves to both top lane and bot lane. This potentially makes melee into range matchups a little bit better, and it gives a space where you can potentially juke for ganks and things like that. I could see like champions that have like a lot of movement speed, like Singed. These alcoves could be really good. And they could be really good because you can basically drop vision around them. So potentially things like Rengar could be really good around these bushes and these alcoves, things like that. They're also adding another bush to where blue buff is. So this could potentially stop level 1 invades a little bit better. And it could also get a little bit more spice when you're trying to set up for Drake or Baron and you're trying to get that deep vision into the enemy's blue side jungle. Jungle Path Diversity. So they've identified that Krugs, there's way too much experience on the right side of the map. So you basically most junglers, they're just going to prioritize the red side of the map all the time. They're just going to keep cycling Krugs and Raptors as much as they can because there's higher gold and experience. So what they're going to do is they're going to give Gromp more experience so the junglers can hit level 3 off of any combination of the outer camp, a buff, and then any third camp. I think that's good. It's going to make single target junglers better. So your Warwicks, your Jarvans, your Xin Zhaos, they can hit level 3 pretty fast by clearing the Gromp instead. However, because it's going to be blue side, they won't have red buff when they try to gank level 3, because I figured you'd probably go blue buff, Gromp, Wolves, then try to gank. But blue buff is not as powerful as red buff as far as ganks is concerned. All right, top lane influence. They're saying the top lane is too weak, and you can't transition a lane win into an effective mid and late game. And then combined with the elemental drakes taking a higher priority, where they're going to shift power to the top laners for better opportunities to translate their their lane into game wins. So basically what they're doing is they're increasing base minion experience slightly for solo laners, so it affects both mid lane and top lane, not just top lane. Both of them can level faster. And then they're reducing the amount of bonus experience generated when allies share experience, so bot lane will level more slowly. And then they're also going to be nerfing jungle experience. So top lane and mid lane are going to level faster, and jungle, bot, and support are going to level slower. And then they're also going to add, they're going to make it so the Rift Herald spawns earlier in the game, and there's a chance that it can respawn a second time if she's killed early. So I'm assuming that it's going to be like 7 minutes and 14 minutes or something like that. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to work it out in order to get a second Rift Herald spawn, but Shelly's pretty hard to kill right at the 10-minute mark unless you're really far ahead, because she takes a long time to kill. So I'm wondering if the first Rift Herald spawn is going to be weaker, but it's going to be weaker on the charge, and the second one will be like the strength that Shelly is right now. Support items, so they're changing it so that they're less poachable, so no more top lane Vladimir with coin, things like that. And they're also going to make it so that the quest system is better. Sports will no longer have to spend gold to upgrade these items in the shop. The quest system will automatically upgrade the items to the second and third tier when reached, and the warding passives are baked into the upgrades. So tier 1, starting stats and gold generation. Tier 2, stats improved, 3 wards added. Tier 3, major stats upgrade, 4 ward capacity, and gold generation passive is removed. So you no longer get the gold generation once you hit the tier 3. So this makes supports better in the early game because they don't have to spend that 1500 gold on that first item. They can just rush right into like mobility boots or a damaging item or more utility item, depending on what type of support you're playing. So they've also removed the coin option. So basically your options are either the Targon passive or the Spell Thieves passive, and you can either go for, if you go for the Spell Thieves passive, you get either high AD or high AP and then low HP. And if you go for the Targon's passive, you have either low AD or low AP and high HP. I think that's probably a good change. Makes it so that you have more options. So you can, whatever you scale off of, you can basically choose what you want, and you can either go defensive or offensive. Okay, finally we're adding a new poaching rule that significantly reduces the gold you get from minions if you're farming them consistently. The tuning we want, it should still allow for support to secure last hits every now and then, or even farm an occasional wave. The penalty kicks in only if the item holders begin farming like non-support. So get rid of, Ezreal abusing things, Vladimir abusing things, stuff like that. This new rule also I'm wondering if this is going to potentially kill like the Garen Yumi or Sona Taric, or kind of these a little bit more non-traditional things where you can go like double Targons, or you go like Spell Thieves Targons, things like that. This new rule also allows us to remove the current anti-poaching mechanics on Spell Thieves. Alright, lethality items. So looks like they're going to be basically buffing lethality items across the board. They're going to give more options. So Dustblade and Ghostblade are roughly the same. Edge of Night, Spell Shield now works like Banshee's Veil. Sanguine Blade is a new lethality item that enables split pushing. Unique passive that grants a huge attack speed buff when no allies nearby. I expect top laners to abuse this as well. I'm thinking Quinn especially can abuse this a lot as a split pusher. And then we're also exploring a few other potential lethality options that you might see. And then they're also going to add a set bonus to lethality items. So I forget where it says exactly. Yeah, individual items grant fewer stats, but now feature a 1 and 2 piece bonus, which preserves their power spikes of assassins for their first in-game purchases. This is to encourage you from going like full lethality. They want you to branch into things like Guardian Angel or Black Cleaver after your first 2 items. Yep, here they say they're removing Spear of Shojin, and yeah, that's all they're doing there. And then for keystones, they're going to modify Conqueror, so it's less of an anti-tank rune. It's going to go more back to being more towards Fervor of Battle, where it gives more stacking adaptive force. Kleptomancy, they're saying, has been a huge problem, especially in range versus melee top lanes. They're going to pull power out of the farm gold off my enemy pattern and push it more into the early game elixir drops. And then Aftershock is continuing to be a problem on squishy champions, so they're basically going to nerf the flat resistances and they're going to buff the scaling of it. So tank junglers and top laners and supports will still want to take it because it's going to scale better, but you won't see the Aftershock, Lissandras, and things like that as much anymore. Okay, sorry, that was a lot. Let's talk about meta changes. So the thing that I think that is going to influence the most is the adjustments to experience. So right here, that's the most important thing in my opinion. So top lane and mid lane are going to get more experience. They're going to level up faster than jungle, bot lane, and support. What this is going to mean is that counter matchups in top lane and mid are going to be even more important. And if one lane of those two lanes snowballs, jungle is not going to be able to influence that matchup whatsoever because the jungler is probably going to be 2, maybe even 3 levels down on the mid laner or the top laner. It's going to allow top laners especially to snowball out of control and start farming up jungle camps and basically shut out that side of the jungle. I think it's going to encourage split pushing a lot more as well. Split pushing has been a style that's been it can be really good, but it can also be really bad. And it definitely hasn't been super popular in top lane. You've been seeing people drafting a lot of champions that can split push and can go to a side lane, but are better team fighters. They're not like pure split pushers like a Fiora or a Tryndamere or a Yorick or something like that. So what I think is going to happen is it's actually going to make it harder for the jungler to gank top lane and mid lane because they're going to be at a lower level, which means that it's a higher risk gank. If your top laner or your mid laner doesn't follow up on your gank, then you're going to get soloed out by that solo laner really, really fast. So that's going to make junglers more hesitant to gank top lane and mid lane unless it's a really, really free gank. So that puts more pressure on bot lane, which is what I thought we were trying to avoid, is these snowball fiestas where it's like, it's a party in bot lane all the time. But personally, as a jungler, I would want to gank bot lane way more often here because it's a lower risk gank. There's a much less likely chance that the bot lane and the support are going to kill me if my bot lane and support don't follow up, as opposed to if a top laner or a mid laner who's like 2 or 3 levels higher than me is able to turn on me and kill me. Additionally, because of the elemental drakes, I'm going to want to go bot lane more often if I'm the jungler. So I think that this might actually not have the influence that they don't want. And it might make jungle feel really, really bad because junglers typically they're really strong early game. I don't want to sound like I'm whining a lot. Jungle is super strong early game, but I feel like jungle really does fall off a cliff a lot of times in the mid and late game. Besides the clutch Drake Steal or Baron Steal that you can do, I do feel like jungle it's not terribly rewarding once you get into the mid and late game, unless you can get a really, really strong pick or you can go for one of those steals. Mainly it's just you trying to make sure that your mid laner or your bot laner stay alive. And I think these changes, if they nerf jungle experience too much, it's going to be really bad because junglers are not going to want to gank top and mid. I don't want to do too much. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I do like the fact that they are making it so that Gromp gives more experience. That will open up jungle pathing a little bit more. It will encourage certain single camp junglers to come back into the meta more. And it will make it so that you won't just always play around your red side jungle. This will also even out the disparity between being blue side and being red side, because traditionally I would say blue side is stronger because the junglers, all of his camps that he wants to take are on the bot side of the map, and he's going to want to prioritize the bot side of the map. Now I think both junglers are going to prioritize the bot side of the map. Just because it's a safer gank and you want to get those early drakes. As far as the drakes are concerned, I know people are going to whine and complain and say it's gimmicky. I don't mind it at all. I'm not going to really knock it until I play a lot of games with it. So with the way that Infernal is going to destroy a lot of these pathways, it's going to make it so that you can start fights in this area a lot easier. So you can see there's a lot more flanking areas that people can go through, and there's also a lot more retreat paths. So I think you're going to see a lot more team fights around red buffs and blue buffs, which is good. I mean, you want to have more action. The Ocean Drake having all these extra bushes, this really favors catch compositions. Having all these extra brushes means more death brush opportunities. So I think Ocean Drake favors, if you get that third Ocean Drake, that's going to favor a catch composition greatly. This one, I think it's pretty neutral. It definitely favors team fighting, I think. So I think this favors both attack and protect compositions. Cloud Drake with the speed up, if it works the way I think it is, where it's just like if you're in that zone, you speed up. It could be very useful for catch compositions, and it could also be useful for siege compositions, because if a siege composition is rotating from lane to lane and they're able to make use of this speed up, and the enemy team is not going to be able to make use of the speed up, this means that the enemy team will be able to rotate even faster, and that you'll get more chip damage on the towers as you rotate from lane to lane. So I can see Cloud Drake being very useful for both catch compositions to get those catches, and then also for siege compositions to make rotations. And then for Mountain Drake, having these extra choke points, that's going to favor attack compositions. Attack compositions love choke points, and if they get teams stuck in these choke points, it allows them to use their big AoE abilities, their big team fight ultimates. I think that's going to really help them. As far as the souls, Infernal Dragon Soul is definitely going to help siege compositions, because they're all about that poke damage a lot of times. So the whole every 3 seconds you get an AoE explosion. I think that's going to really favor siege compositions. Ocean Dragon Soul, that's going to favor protect and potentially siege compositions, because you get that strong resource regeneration, which means that it's less harder for you to get burst. Cloud Dragon Soul, I think that's going to really favor catch compositions mainly. It might also favor siege compositions, but catch and probably attack are going to want the Cloud Dragon Soul more than any of them. And then Mountain Dragon Soul kind of favors everybody. I think it's more of like an anti-catch composition. Basically, it's an anti-burst tool. And I think that's probably good, since catch is really popular and it's really strong, especially in solo queue. I'd argue it might be the strongest team composition that we have right now, especially for solo queue. It's just really easy to execute, and it's really strong. These side lane alcoves, I don't think they're going to influence the meta that much. They might make certain champions a little bit more viable, like I was saying, like Singed, maybe Rengar, maybe Blitzcrank. Maybe it's going to be really hard to see how they're going to make use of these alcoves and these extra brushes. So with the support items, making it so that you don't have to spend the extra gold, I think you're going to see a lot of supports buying boots too really early on, and that's going to encourage roaming, especially with the changes that they've done to solo lane experience. Leaving your bot laner in a solo lane is actually going to be really useful if your bot laner is protected. So it's really going to rely on supports knowing when they can roam, knowing when their bot laner is safe, and it's going to allow your bot laner to get really far ahead as far as experience is concerned. So I think you're going to see a huge shift towards roaming supports. So your Blitzcranks, your Pikes, your Bards, anybody who's got a lot of crowd control or damage is going to be, in high mobility is going to be very useful in the support role. And I think that you're going to see jungle and support teaming up a lot more, because they're both going to be a little bit lower level. So especially if they want to try and gank mid lane, they're going to want to team up. So jungle support synergy is going to be really huge, going on those roams together, maybe invading, things like that. Lethality items changing, that might push assassins back in the meta. It's going to push top laners who can use lethality items as well back into the meta. So yeah, you might see, and also it's going to help the AD champions in the jungle who can go lethality. So you might see more lethality Jarvan, you might see more Kha'Zix, Rengar, those type of things. Keystone rune changes are great. Conquer being less anti-tank is going to encourage more tanks to come back into top lane. However, with how the soul lane experience is and how powerful I think split pushing is going to be, I think split pushers and duelists are going to be probably the best. It's mainly going to be juggernauts and skirmishers, I think, are going to dominate top lane, or those ranged top laners who can duel really effectively, like Quinn and stuff like that, could be really good too. And then Aftershock changes, I think that might really encourage tank junglers to come back, especially with the nerfs to the jungle experience. So carry junglers are going to be less reliable since they're not gonna level as quickly, which means they're not gonna be able to snowball as hard. So those utility junglers who can rely on lower levels and lower gold are gonna be incentivized more, because you basically can just be more of a second support. And I know that a lot of junglers don't like playing that way, but it looks like they're trying to turn jungle back into a second support role. So yep, those are my thoughts on the meta. Overall, it's not good or bad. It's just different, and I don't want to knock things too hard before I try them. I'm definitely disappointed with how they're changing the jungle experience. I wish that they could find some way to make it so the jungle was less impactful early game and more impactful late game. I think those would be better changes to the jungle rather than just nerfing jungle experience across the board. I do like that they're going to try and make top lane more effective. The problem is that when you try to boost solo lane experience, you're not only making top lane more effective, you're making mid lane more effective, and mid lane's already really, really strong. So yeah, I feel like it's just gonna make mid lane really, really strong in this new meta. I don't necessarily like or dislike the changes to the elemental drakes. I think that it's gonna be different, and it's definitely gonna spice things up a little bit, and it could be cool. I just need to play it in order to figure out whether or not I like it. My guess is that I probably will like it because I like change. I don't like things being static, and this is just another thing that's going to change. So I probably will like it, knowing me. Anyway, leave your thoughts in the comments below on how you think the meta is going to change in the preseason for 2020. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me on anything that I've said in this video, whether or not you like the changes or dislike the changes and why. And additionally, I still have Legends of Runeterra, so I could do some videos on that. So if you're interested in seeing some Legends of Runeterra videos, leave a comment. Let me know what type of decks you want me to play. I do have a few that I am enjoying that are kind of a little bit of the non-meta decks. I've been seeing a lot of Fiora decks. I'm trying to stay away from that. But yeah, hope you guys have a fantastic day. This is Randomonium signing off.